Welcome to Anecdotes for Success with Matt and Paul. Storytelling is an art form, emphasizing the value and learning that is created through personal experience. Our purpose is to share these stories and experiences with the listener. Everyone has a powerful testimony. Let's use them to level up to our best life with truth, meaning, trade-offs, and perspective.
We were talking, and our guest Ed, who I'll introduce in a minute, was about ready to tell a story, and I'm like, stop, we got to record. So everybody, we have Edward Mansouri on tonight, founder of Weatherstem, high school friend. We go way back to the day, and I'm excited more than anything to just introduce you two together and see where this podcast goes. And I know you guys are familiar with each other from high school, but it gets to be a few years every time I think back to those days. But Ed, before we even start anything, let's talk golf for a minute.
Yeah, Ed, let me answer your question. Yes, I do play golf. Not as well as you two, but I do play.
Well, I have a golf bag in my garage with a bird's nest in it, so I haven't been playing golf too much. But I'll start out. I know you guys have very much an entrepreneurial theme to your podcast, and I had the pleasure of visiting Paul last month, and I got a chance to see his amazing 42 latitude establishment, and just very proud of Paul. And I'm not at all surprised by his success. And I just remember, having a chance to play on the golf team with Paul, and I lived near the golf course that he works at, and I was just marveled at his work ethic. He would be working every day from 6 a.m. to noon at least, helping with the grounds there, and then he would hit balls all afternoon and putt all evening. So I suspect that work ethic that was on display on the golf course probably somehow manifests itself into Paul's entrepreneurial success. And I played sports in high school, and I went to a pretty advanced level of education, got my master's degree, got 2 undergraduate degrees. And I feel in running my company, sometimes that tenacity and discipline that I learned in sports is a lot more meaningful to me than what I earned in the classroom. Paul, a story that I was thinking, you were a much better golfer. You are a much better golfer, always were a much better golfer than me. And I was playing with you. I had a chance to break 80 for the first time in my life at the Soaring Eagles golf course. And we came upon the 15th hole, and I was even par. Okay. I was even par after 14 holes. I get up to the 15th hole with my 8-iron, which you have to hit over a pretty big pond, and plop right in the water. And then, so I drop before the pond. I'm like, okay, let me keep my composure. Maybe I can get out of here with a bogey or double, preserve the opportunity to shoot under 80. Plopped another one in the water. And I threw my 8-iron. I threw it like way up in the air, and it landed smack dab in the middle of the pond. And the way it stuck in the mud, like the head stuck in the mud and the shaft was sticking straight up. Okay. And for probably like the next year, it was like a memorial to that failed opportunity to break 80. And every day, like the angle of the club would just drop a little bit more until it finally disappeared. Do you remember, Paul, was I playing with you? I feel like I was playing with you on that day.
Remember that when you said you threw your club, I can picture that club sticking out of the pond.
Yep. So that was that was my love. That sort of epitomizes my love-hate relationship with golf. And I every summer I say this is the summer I'm going to get back and start playing more. And every fall I'm like, damn, maybe next year.
That's fantastic.
Did you ever break 80?
I did. I broke it.
Okay.
I shot a 78. Not on that round because
Right.
everything fell apart, and then I was so pissed off. I think I doubled 16. But no, I broke 80 once in my life at that course. I shot a 78. That was my best round ever.
Okay.
No, I always tell players and teams I coach and students that I'm encountering that sports owes you nothing, man. It owes you absolutely nothing. If you're lucky, you might find some teammates that love you or some friends and family that love you, but the universe, when it comes to sports, there ain't going to be any love. But those are good lessons, like you were saying.
Well, that discipline, though. I mean, I just remember, earlier in my career, Weatherstem is my second company. My first company was called UCompass, which is an e-learning software company. And I just have this memory of I had a big opportunity to get a contract up in North Carolina. And I had a presentation at 8 a.m. And I was in my hotel room at 3 a.m. Okay, I had late flights, all sorts of problems. And I had to demonstrate our ability to do something. And I hadn't even started on it. And it was 3 a.m. and my bed was screaming my name. And it was very simple. It's like, okay, do this and you have a chance of getting the contract. Don't do it and you have no chance of getting it. So I said, screw it. And I didn't get any sleep and I got it done and we got the contract. And I just feel that that is something that, you know, I had more of a preparation for that kind of experience from sports than I did academics. I'm not saying academics aren't important. I'm not saying don't get good grades. I'm not saying don't, focus on your scholar and all that sort of stuff. But for me personally, sports brought a lot of lessons that I brought to the entrepreneurial world.
Yeah, and don't you think it's so? I mean, I'm looking searching for the word here, but almost common sense, like what sports can bring to you in a number of things, right? You're into music, right? You're into chess. I don't know what it is. Preparation, practice, discipline. I mean, these aren't secrets. These are the most, I want to say basic type items that gear you towards success. And look, I being growing up playing sports was all I cared about. It's the only thing that mattered to me. But the lessons I took were the practice, the preparation, the hard work. They would lead to other results. And all I've done in my entire life is take those lessons and apply them to anything I find important. Business, my relationships with my wife, my children, my friends, my family, and they all translate. I don't want to say, I would say into a greater degree of success than I would other find possible. Not that I'm successful in everything, because God knows I'm not. But the point is so basic and it's so obvious, and why that is not. And I'm not saying everyone should be an athlete, of course, but I am saying everything one should participate in something that requires discipline because it creates a mindset that you're talking about that if I do A, then the likelihood of B is much greater than if I don't do A, right? And I presume that has pushed you to successes throughout your life.
And teamwork and getting your ass chewed out by a coach.
Wonderful.
And when you go to get your first job, and if you haven't had that experience, you can kind of have a meltdown the first time you get bitched out, which you will. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that there's really, especially with what you guys are doing with a focus on entrepreneurship, that's a really strong message to parents. Sports are a lot more important than, oh, let me see if my kid has the talent to get a scholarship someday.
Yeah, big lesson when I hear someone say, "Oh, it's hard," or "I can't do this," or running a mile and they can't finish it. Like I don't have players run the mile because I care if they can run the mile. I have them run the mile to see if they can push through it when things start to hurt and they feel tired, right? And my point is when you keep pushing yourself, it never gets easier. It's still hard. You just get better at handling the hard, right? It's easier to handle those hard situations, and sports teaches so much of that. I mean, Matt's whole career started in sports. I mean, the energy and discipline and emotion you brought to golf in high school, and you played lacrosse too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What I always admire that because there was not another person more in the moment than Edward Mansouri when it came to high school sports.
Well, I appreciate that, and I think that again, it's that that discipline and tenacity that you get from sports that you bring to your business, and not I don't care what business you're in. I don't care if you're selling being a restaurateur like Mr. Matt, or like your business, Paul, or my business, or if you're selling cookies or lemonade. It's hard. It's not, and you get. You get kicked in the teeth a lot, okay? And I think the reason why a lot of people fail at business isn't because they lack talent or they lack discipline. I think it's they get discouraged. I think that they don't have that framework to understand failure. And believe me, I for every dollar I've made, there were $100 that I didn't make in various ideas that I had related to the business.
Let, let's talk quick. Go back a second. I know we caught up a couple weeks ago when you were in town, and it was so much fun, and that's what led to this. You're, I think you said you were working on your PhD when you thought of the first business. You
Yes.
want to talk about that?
Sure. So, my passion, and you probably know this, Paul, and Mr. Matt, a lot of people, if you said my name, the first thing that would come to mind was weather. Okay. The one constant in my whole life has been weather. I've been passionate about it literally since the age of 5. I knew that my career trajectory was going to involve meteorology. So I went to Penn State to get my undergraduate degree in meteorology. And Penn State used to be like in the back in the day, 1 out of 4 meteorologists in the United States were Penn State grads. Okay, and
Oh, wow.
that's it wasn't just that it was 2.5 hours from Horseheads. It was the best. And I'm biased, but I still think it's the preeminent and best school for meteorology. And then I also got a degree in engineering, and I worked as an engineer for a year, hated it, and said, no, this ain't right. So I went to Florida State University to pursue my graduate degrees in meteorology. So I was working toward a PhD, and if you're taking if you're in college, no matter what your major is, you have to take certain general electives. You have to take some science, you have to take some humanities, you have to take some social sciences. So the general ed course for meteorology at Florida State was called Met 1010. And the guy that one of the professors that was teaching it had a stroke, right? So at the very beginning of the semester, they said to the graduate students, "Hey, do any of you have any interest in teaching?" And I'm like, "Well, no, man, I'm too busy with my research. But are you going to pay?" It's like, "Yeah, you'd get a teaching assistantship." So I'm like, "Oh, that could be kind of cool." And I sort of thought that getting people that are not interested in meteorology, sharing my passion, and seeing if I could even get one kid excited about weather, well, that would be pretty cool. So I said, all right. So I was thrown to the wolves, and I was teaching a 3 credit meteorology course to about 200 FSU undergraduate students. No training, wasn't given any guidance, no syllabus, no textbook. And I'm like, and this was the late 90s. So on the weekends, I'm carrying home stacks of paper like this to grade. Meanwhile, my research in graduate school was very programming oriented. This was at the dawn of the web. So I was doing a lot of work learning how to program for the web. And I said, wait a second here. All these kids have access to the computer lab that's full of computers. I'm gonna write a website where they go to the computer lab and take their tests and take their assignments online. So I don't have to grade papers. So it was kind of an experiment that worked. And then I found out there were companies out there that were actually doing that and making money. So I said, screw staying in college for 5 more years to finish my PhD. And I started an online education software company. Okay. I created a platform that enabled at first classrooms and then schools and then entire universities to put their courses and academic programs on the internet. And for the next 16, 17 years, that was my day job, running an e-learning software company. And one of our biggest successes is that here in Florida, there's a program called the Florida Virtual School, which is a statewide, state-funded online school that serves hundreds of thousands of kids. So that company went on to serve well over 5 million students, generate over $50 million in revenue. And it was a very successful business. And I ended up selling it in 2017 to pursue and use the money that I made to start my current venture, which is called Weatherstem, which is a weather technology company. So that's real just quick segue as to how that company started. During my first company, Ucompass, as I mentioned, one of my big clients was the state of Florida. And there was a conversation about the courses they were offering, and they weren't offering a high school meteorology course. And I was like, well, that's kind of strange. Here we're in Florida, our 2 biggest industries are agriculture and tourism. You can't think of anything that affects those industries more than weather. We have the whole hurricanes hit us 7 months a year. So, long story short, that opportunity led to some light bulbs going off and said, and I started this weather education company, and now we're working in we're on our way to working in all 50 states. We're working internationally, and very excited to be able to make a living pursuing my passion.
That's a great ride, Ed. That's very, very interesting, very inspiring. I love stories because, you know, I haven't, Ed, I don't know when the last time we saw each other was, but it's been a long time. And you just hear what you're doing, and then to get the backstory on it, it's always just so fascinating to me how these things line up because it's never what you think.
No.
It's never what you think. Um, tell me a little bit about what Weatherstem does and what the future looks like.
Sure. So going back to that story of how it started, so the STEM in WeatherStem, in education, STEM is an acronym. Okay, it
Mhm.
stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Okay, so originally, truthfully, WeatherStem started sort of as a hobby of that first online education software company. Okay, going back to the conversation that led to the idea for the company, it was really like, hey, my primary client is the state of Florida. Florida is the third biggest by population state in the country. There's an opportunity to promote more weather literacy. Okay, so at first we started out creating basically like online education courses in weather for not only children but for the general public. Okay, and then we got the idea. We said, what if we could go to a school and set up a weather station? Okay, we actually donated one of these systems to Horseheads High School that is on at the football stadium. Okay, so we said, what if we go to a school and set up a weather station and see if the data that this weather station collects can be useful in any sort of educational way? Well, then we said, well, what if we put a camera on the system? What if we create a website? What if we integrate these things with social media? What if we add things like lightning alerts and tornado warnings and stuff? So before long, folks in the emergency management community started contacting us. Okay. And I sort of realized, I was like, well, wait a second. If I want to do this professionally, at some point in time, we're going to have to figure out how to make money. Okay. And there's not a lot of as noble as the goal of promoting weather literacy and weather education is, there's just not a lot of money in it. Okay. Sadly, a lot of our country is like, well, Ed, weather education's great, but a lot of our school can't read. And a lot of them drop out before they're in their junior year. Okay, so basically, I realized that if I want to have a company that is focused on my passion of weather, we have to sort of be able to pivot. We can still focus on education, but we have to be more focused on something else. So that something else became weather technology for safety and health. Right. So if I'm a high school athletics program, let me get text messages so that I know that dangerous lightning is approaching, high heat, advice on hydration. A lot of our clients, we work with a lot of major college football stadiums, a lot of, working with a lot of NFL teams. So basically what our focus is at this point, most of our revenue is B2G, business to government. Okay. So we're contracted by a lot of state, county, municipalities that say, okay, we need to put your weather monitoring technology in this location, so that we can understand, is it safe to transit this bridge? Is flooding going to be a risk based on how much rain the system's measuring? And there's a very important part of what we do, which is called weather forensics, right? So these systems that we set up. So for instance, like I said, we have one of these systems at Horseheads High School. Okay. What if, God forbid, and I even hate using Horseheads in this example, but what if, God forbid, there's some sort of an incident that happens. Maybe there's a young man or woman that has some sort of a heat stroke situation. Okay. We can go back in time into the system and see, like, from the time the system was set up, what minute by minute were the recorded weather conditions? What did the camera see? How much lightning was in the area? So a lot of our clients, if something bad happens, if there's, God forbid, some sort of a litigation, our clients can go back in time and see exactly what role the weather maybe did or did not play in that situation. Okay. So that's sort of and also these systems have cameras. So if you were to watch the Weather Channel, like let's suppose there was a severe thunderstorm approaching the Horseheads area. If you turned on the Weather Channel, I would almost guarantee you that camera that looks at the Horseheads football field would show up to augment their live weather broadcast, right? Now, where we're trying to go, as I said earlier, is we're trying to sort of pivot again to focus on corporations. How can our technology, how can our focus on weather start to help a company's bottom line? Okay. If you're the Soaring Eagles golf course and you know that next week it is going to be a torrential rain situation, maybe that helps you make decisions on HR. Okay. Maybe that helps the restaurant make purchasing decisions. And if you extrapolate that forward to think of like big chains, big retailers, big grocery chains like Wegmans and Publix, Target, we think there's a real opportunity. And our mission is to become pioneers in helping big corporations improve their bottom line using weather, using climate, using weather technology.
Hey Ed, within our subway system, we have a scheduling program. And within that scheduling program will will basically look at our business over any selected period of time and say, and look at past history, of course, and say, okay, Matt, for store X, you should be scheduling X amount of hours this week, X amount on, Monday, Tuesday, by day, by 15-minute increments, based on previous sales, but also predicted sales based on a number of things, one of which is a big factor in it, is weather. And I'm not sure where that data comes from, where they're getting this predicted weather from. But as I listened to you and heard from Paul prior to, I was thinking of all these ways that this kind of information could be used. Not so much for government. I think that's pretty obvious. I mean, you're talking public, and it's pretty broad, let's call it, whereas your business is obviously going to be very specific, right, to what your needs are and then how you can make those decisions. So you know it's an enormous help for us planning wise. I don't think they're as accurate as they need to be sometimes we happen to use, but it is a fascinating thing, and something that I see really works, and so I'm just fascinated by the whole thing.
And I think when you look at when you go in to start looking at the sales and the inventory side of things, I'd be very interested. Like if you took, say, like a year of data from your subway operations and sort of took the sales data, like what was selling, like what specific sandwiches were selling at what specific times a day, and you overlaid the weather data, like what was the weather in all of those locations at that point in time, you will see patterns. Okay, you will see patterns emerging, and we actually had a neat opportunity. A good friend of mine is a restaurateur here in Tallahassee. He owns a very successful business downtown, high-end restaurant. It's frequent. It's near the state capitol. So he let us put a weather station there, and he also let us integrate with the Aloha. Like Aloha is like a transaction system that a lot of small restaurants use. Okay, so he let us integrate with that, and after a year, we had a full data model of every food and beverage product that was sold for the whole year, and also minute by minute, what were the weather conditions? And not only that, where were the people sitting that were bordering things? Were they sitting inside? Were they sitting outside? And we had enough data after a year to basically build a food and beverage, a meteorologically driven food and beverage recommendation engine. Okay. So, and in certain weather conditions, certain products and beverages are sold much more than other weather conditions. So, our fascination is what happens if we start to bring that to a broader level, to a more of a corporate level, start looking at things like grocery stores, not only for, HR planning, but also like promotions. And if you start looking at long-term weather trends, like if I know that in upstate New York, the month of October is going to be record high heat, what does that mean as far as the decisions you make, as far as your operations?
Yeah, no question about it. We ought to have a conversation after this, Ed, and see if there's not a conversation we can connect with with a corporation I happen to have some involvement with. So
That's
uh,
fantastic.
I think that would be interesting because I look, we live it all the time. It's people are always people who aren't in certain businesses, let's say, are always fascinated when I say, "Oh yeah, the weather." And they go, "Oh, really? Weather that is that big of a factor in your business?" I go, "Oh my God, are you kidding me? It's a huge factor."
I mean, this, simply put, you're not going to go get an ice cream sundae on a day that's record cold, and you're not going to get a bowl of hot, spicy chili on a record high temperature day. I mean, it's so simple.
No, no. In where I'm really fascinated is the degree you can dial into the products that um, we're certainly not doing, and the preparation of it in our world. Probably wouldn't be that big of a difference in terms of the mix of it. Because of just how we operate. But what would be is promotional opportunities, I would say. And those promotional opportunities could venture not only to in-store opportunities, and with whatever, and I'm talking about any business, whatever you happen to have in store, right? To use, video boards or whatever when the customer is in there. But what kind of opportunities could you drive through your app or some of those things to your customers to drive them in because it's an unseasonably cold out, and boy, doesn't a meatball sub sound great today?
Yeah.
Kind of thing, right?
Exactly. And I think even for the small businesses, like, the social media platforms, like Facebook generates all its revenue from advertising. And I don't know if you've ever done any Facebook ads, but you can
Many.
basically set it up so that like, well, I want my ad to show up to men between 30 and 50 that live in these counties that have this level of education. I mean, the specificity of the ads you can target are incredible. And I think the next frontier is I want my ad to be visible to people that are having over 90-degree temperatures today or who haven't had rain in the last 30 days. Okay. So I think, I'm intrigued. Sometimes I've been guilty of creating solutions looking for problems. Okay.
Okay.
We for a long time been, sort of have built this engine like, how can we provide sort of like an API web-based service that would enable small entrepreneurs, small businesses to leverage weather intelligence? Like if you're a pool company, your social media ad, it'd be nice if it showed up to people that had just had a storm. Okay. And if you're a sprinkler company, it'd be nice to have your ad show up to people that are in a drought. Okay. So I think it's kind of still like a little bit of a solution looking for a problem. But I think eventually it's just going to be a given. We're going to live in a society where small and large businesses alike are leveraging what they know about the weather has been, what it is now, and what it will be in a much more effective model to improve their operation and their bottom line.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely something. I can't think of a business that couldn't benefit from that predictability, right? And then it's like a lot of okay, I can predict it now. Now who cares? What does that mean? Well, this is what it means to my particular industry. I also have a business where I promote concerts and events and such, and the the difference in sales leading up to the show. I'm not talking day of or anything like that, but the leading up to the show, um, the difference I'll see in sales, of course, is driven by my advertising and promotions, but that is dictated by weather.
Yeah.
The success of it. I could run commercial A on a beautiful day, and I don't get nearly the impact that I do if I run that commercial on a day where most people are sitting indoors because it's snowing or cloudy or raining or something like that. So there's even that business. I see tremendous benefits from understanding the weather.
Oh yeah, and I mean, and the risk and liabilities aspect of that business. I mean, if you have a venue that, God forbid, has a severe thunderstorm or severe wind situation, there's a lot of risk and liability issues accompanied with that. And we do work with a number, like our company does work with a lot of concert venues that, provide that kind of system for those very purposes.
Fascinating. Fascinating.
I want to get back to what you just said. You said you're guilty of creating solutions and looking for problems.
Yeah.
Is that a good or bad thing?
I think overall it's more of a good thing than a bad thing. Okay. Like
Okay.
I love to, interestingly, like even though I'm a meteorologist, I run a weather technology company. 99% of my job is pretty much software development. Okay. And the software side of things. And software, I love to create things. Okay. So like, our company is sort of based into two macroscopic realms. On the one hand, we have specialization like infrastructure, like weather stations, cameras, sensors, probes. But then the other part of it is, well, what do we do with that information? Well, we use it to drive a web, a social media, and a mobile platform that is used to take that information and make decisions. So I'm in charge of that. So I'm our chief software developer. So, that's what I've done for pretty much my whole career was write software, write code. So yeah, over the years, I have been guilty of coming up with a lot of ideas that I had a good time, that I had fun building. But it's like, well, wait a second, either, this is a little too far out there. There's not much of a demand for it. It's a good idea, but people aren't ready for it. So yeah, but the thing is if you do something like that and you don't make any money, but the thing worked, was it a success or failure? Okay. And I think that's in the eye of the beholder. Okay.
Mhm.
I have learned that, well, okay, for this particular project, what new skills did I attain? Okay. What new knowledge did I attain? And when I do actually have an idea that can actually generate some money, how can I lend those to better that initiative so I can make more money? So I think like, your own mental compass of kind of gauging your own success or failure is important. And I think if you only are gauging that, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're an entrepreneur, at some point you got to make money. Okay. At some point you got to make money or you're going to go have to get a job somewhere. And that's going to steal your time and energy away from your own pursuits. Okay. But I think, having the right attitude when you build something and it works, but it doesn't make any money, it's important to not get too down in the dumps.
Yeah, that's a good perspective, Ed, because obviously the traditional route is to find the problem, right? Understand a problem and try to find the solution to it. But it sounds like your whole I don't want to say your whole life, but your focus is on developing solutions to problems. Whereas people like myself, I listen to that and I'm fascinated. Frankly, I'm envious because I go, I've never come up with an idea in my life. All I've done is looked at things that have worked and just duplicated them.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that the way you run your business and the fact that you've been so successful, whether you look at it as creativity or not, I guarantee you there's probably countless ideas you've had, I can do this better, or they can do that better. And, interestingly, the two different companies I have, it's sort of a tale of two different cities. Like my first company, Compass, I saw a business opportunity. Okay. I was like, okay, the world is moving toward online education. There are very few companies in that space. I've developed some capabilities there. I'm going to pursue that business because it's a way to make money. Okay. And I was successful at doing that. With Weatherstem, it's sort of been the opposite. It's like, I love weather. It's been my lifelong passion. And I'm going to will myself to figure out a way to make money just because it's my passion. Okay. And in truth, right now, Weatherstem is doing well. We're making money. We're in our sixth year of our profits being, making more money than we're spending, all that sort of stuff. But, at this point, we're still nowhere near as successful financially as I was in my first company. We're on that trajectory, certainly. But yeah, so that's just, two different perspectives. And every entrepreneur is going to have their own motivations for what they're doing. And they're neither right nor wrong. It's an extremely individualized thing, what you choose to spend your time and energy with.
It is, Ed, and I'm glad you brought those two perspectives to it because, you're often told, you often hear, oh, find something you love and go pursue that. And there's some validity to that, no doubt about it. And then But oftentimes, look, I loved playing basketball growing up. I was never going to make any money at it. Like how much time and energy do I want to pump into something where I don't have a financial future? Whereas I'm a prisoner to it almost, right? I got to go get my job and I got to work, and then when I get my free time, I can go do what I like. Versus here's an opportunity, and this is a camp I've always fallen in. I want to make money because then that gives me the opportunity to do a bunch of things I love and take
Oh
care
yeah.
of people I love and those kinds of things. And that avenue is easy for me to pursue because I can see the opportunities. I might not have a passion for, flipping houses, but boy, do I know I can make money doing it, right?
Absolutely.
Or whatever the case may be. So I love that you come from both sides.
And I felt that when I was starting, there was almost I think a lot of entrepreneurs, there's almost this like guiltiness you feel by saying that you want to make money. Okay. Especially in education. Especially in education, where like there was, and Paul, I'm sure you'll appreciate this as a lot of your great career, you've been an educator. There sort of at least used to be the sense that, well, things in education should be free. How dare you want to make money? Okay. And then I realized making money is good. Okay. Because like for me, I want Weatherstem to make a lot of money. And it's not necessarily because I want to go buy a nicer boat, okay, or get a nicer house. It's because, hiring good people takes money. Investing and being able to play and explore new technology takes money. Okay. Being able to go and work with big companies that aren't going to talk to you unless you have financial solvency takes money. Okay. So, it's really sort of changed my perspective. And also, here's a question. When's the last time a poor guy gave you a job? Right?
It'd be the first time.
Sure. When's the last time a poor guy hired you for a job? It's not going to happen. Okay. So I think that, having a motive, being financially motivated, being financially driven is a very, multifaceted conversation. And a lot of people think it's just, oh, they're greedy. They want to just make money to, show off their nice car. No, bullshit. Okay. It's about, you have to, you have to have the financial resources to innovate and pursue the ideas that you have.
And I couldn't. I'm glad you said that because the narrative that the idea behind what you're doing, what I'm doing, what anyone's doing to quote unquote make money is greed motivated. I've found to be almost always untrue, and that I can live with. What I can't live with is the handcuffs it's put on so many young people to not pursue things with the vigor and the passion that they could because they don't want to be looked at a certain way.
Yeah.
It's just flat out wrong.
Yeah, completely. And there can almost sometimes be, well, it doesn't matter as long as you're doing something you love. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's called work. Okay.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite sayings, I might have, told Paul might roll his eyes because I always say this when I'm talking about entrepreneurship, but I love this quote that this guy gave to these business school students. He said, yes, folks, the guy that started the Howard Johnson hotel chain, okay, didn't even graduate high school. And he was given a talk to, I think, the University of Michigan Business School. And he said, yes, folks, I'm living proof that you can be successful in business working only half days. Okay. So people probably thought he meant like 8 to 12 or 12 to 5. And it doesn't matter which 12 hours you choose. Okay. And I think that is the one word that I've realized in my own business career, and I've been running a tech company more than half my life now, is I think the one word to me that's most important is the word relentless. Okay. It's like, so I go through some periods of time where I kind of get burnt out and it's just like, I got to kind of chill out. But, no matter what you're doing, that relentlessness, that like getting you up in the middle of the night to come up with ideas, that like blowing off things when your friends are going out having a good time and you're going to work on your idea, that relentlessness, I think it's indispensable. And I don't think you can fake it. I don't think you can buy it. I don't think you can teach it. It's just either it is or it isn't. Either you have it or you don't. And not to pat all three of us on the back, but we're all three successful entrepreneurs. At some level, we must have it.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely vital. And like you said, it doesn't just, it's just just not there to grab when you want, right? I mean, you can have it in a variety of areas, but it's just not there when you want. And I always piggybacking on your idea or what you're saying there. I always say to people, whether it's I give a lot of talks, but I also just talking to people. I always say, because I get this question, well, how much do you work, right? And my answer is, I have no idea. I don't track it. When you love something this much, what am I punching a clock? This is my passion. But I always say to people, I go, look, here's the beauty. I can work as much or as little as I want, but I get to pay the consequences of either decision.
Well said. Well said. And I was here in Florida. I went to graduate school at Florida State. Okay. And they have a college that they're the first university with an actual college of entrepreneurship. Okay. So not just a department, but a college of entrepreneurship. And I was very flattered. They named like 7 successful Florida State graduates who started their business under the age of 30. Okay. They had named me that list. And they asked me to give a talk. Okay. They asked us to give a talk. And so I'm talking to these entrepreneurship students, okay, like, whatever, these early 20s students that are going to school for entrepreneurship. And I said, during my talk, I said, yes, folks, if you want to see the person with the next great idea, the next world-changing vision, look around the room, okay? And they probably thought I was going to say something like, they might be sitting in front of you, they might be sitting next to you. And I said, they're not here, okay? They don't need to listen to a schmuck like me. Okay, they don't need to be validated. Okay, they're in Starbucks using free internet. They're in their parents' basement, saving some money to pursue their vision. They don't need to be validated. Okay, they're yes, I'm glad you're in school. I'm glad you're learning the basics of finance and marketing, all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, those people that are going to be successful, they're already burning the midnight oil. They're already self-driven to where they don't need to sit in something like this, listening to some schmuck. Okay. And I think some people might have been offended. Some people might have been appreciated that candor, but that's how I feel.
And you just gave me goosebumps. You really did, because the honesty of it all, the truth of that statement. I know that with my whole soul that you're right about that. And good for you for obviously you didn't mean anyone in there couldn't be successful.
No.
Clearly, but you're painting the picture of what it actually looks like.
Yeah, I feel like absolutely. I mean, who knows? And it turns out that one of the there's this company called Spanx, which is like it's female like form-fitting clothing. Well, that company was formed by an FSU alum. Who's worth well over $1 billion now. And her story was like the department she was at FSU was like kind of, very unsupportive of her. Hey, I love Florida State. I'm not disrespecting my alma mater, but I think there's no saying that people that go and seek out that sort of stuff aren't on a trajectory themselves to be successful. But I just feel that there's that inner confidence. And one thing that is also like that I learned, one of the biggest life lessons I learned in business, folks. Okay. And Mr. Paul, I think this is something that you can borrow for your successful coaching and entrepreneurship, is when someone tells you you can't do something, okay, what they're really doing is they're projecting their own insecurities onto you. Okay. Well, I can't do it, therefore you must not be able to do it. And I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs need to understand, is that, you would think that encouragement, support is going to come from those closest to you, but sometimes it's the opposite. Like, my dad, okay, Paul knew my dad, very nice guy, very generous guy. But when I told him, okay, I just went to school for all these years for meteorology, and I'm going to drop out and start an online education software company. And he thought I was absolutely crazy. He's like, you're going to fall flat on your face. You don't have any idea what you're doing. You don't know the first thing about business, blah, 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 on and on and on. This is my dad. Okay, if he's not going to support me and encourage me, who the F is?
Yeah.
So I think that's something that and just, in kind of being adjacent to a lot of people starting companies, you could tell, oh, well, my wife's not really behind it. Oh, my parents think this is stupid. And it really, like, I think you have to kind of understand that from the get-go. If you think the people closest to you are going to be your biggest supporters, a lot of times they're going to be your biggest detractors, to the point where it actually causes you to retreat and recede from what you were planning to do. And I think it's a very, very important life lesson that I had to learn.
Especially if you're part of their circle, they don't like the fact that you might be breaking away and forming a new circle.
That is absolutely right. Okay,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, there are a lot of people that are resentful. Okay, there are a lot of people that they don't want to see you succeed, because it sort of makes them feel, and internally, how much or how little they're doing. Okay, and you have to really be thick-skinned to that, and resilient to it. A lot more psychology in being an entrepreneur than probably I would like, but it just is what it is. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it.
I mean, we're doing this podcast extremely early in the morning, right? And I'm gonna leave here. Haven't even started my day yet. I'm all fired up. And it's fun to be around people that like doing the things and are interested in things and taking action like I like to do. I mean, you guys are on a different level than me, but that's why I like hanging out with you. That's the whole point, right?
What are you talking about? I am, I don't know, Mr. Matt, have you been to Mr. Paul's 42 degrees operation?
Of course I have. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
wonderful.
just, I mean, I just am so proud of him. I mean, it's just like my girlfriend, the one thing, Paul, that I have a problem with is you didn't have any double XL t-shirts when I was there. Okay. So I got to see my girlfriend, Margaret Ann, wearing her t-shirt all the time. I'm like, damn it. And I'm giving you a chance to redeem yourself, because I'm going to be coming back through Horseheads in late October. Okay. And you better
It'll be there. It'll be there.
XL shirt. Okay. I'm just telling you. I'm not threatening any vandalism on the establishment, but
Just to be clear.
but it better be there.
Hey, you need to be a more regular guest with us, because there's so much we could chip away at. And I
I
mean,
love it. I'd love it. I'm always, this is like, the early to bed, early to rise. Sometimes for me, it's late to bed, early to rise. But
yes.
I'm a morning person. That's when I get the most ideas, the most clarity. It's before the day starts to grind. So yeah, I'd love to join you, inspirational gentlemen, anytime. This has been a lot of fun.
Are you guys like me? Like, there's days I wake up, I'm like, I am so gassed. Tonight's the night I'm going to bed super early. And then next thing you know, it's 11:30 at night. And I'm like fired up doing something. Then I wake up, I'm like, all right, tonight's the night I'm going to go to bed early.
It's a very simple rule, like, that I developed a long time ago, is I sleep when I'm tired. Okay. And I think, like, I'm one of those people, like, I've always been like this. And this might be the single biggest key to my success as an entrepreneur, is I'm just wired where I don't need a lot of sleep. Okay.
Yeah.
Like 4 or 5 hours. Okay. That's my sweet spot. And I mean, the thing is like, a lot of the code, because my products, my company, it's based on code. It's based on writing instructions to a computer to do this, that, or the other thing. And I swear, like, most of my career, most of my code has been written like in the middle of the night, or like 4 or 5 in the morning. So if I was someone that needed 8 hours of sleep, like, some people that have been in my life, like my ex-wife and stuff, I don't know. I mean, my career might be very different. So,
Yeah.
and those studies, whenever you see those studies that tell you about all the horrible things that are going to happen if you don't get 8 hours of sleep a night, most of those studies are funded by pharmaceutical companies that make things like sleep aids, like Ambien and stuff. Okay. And I do think one thing I do when I talk to entrepreneurs, one thing I do talk about, and I'm sure you'll appreciate this, Mr. Matt, is you really got to focus on your health. Okay. You really have to focus on taking care of yourself, whatever that means for you, whether it's getting enough sleep or eating good food, because one of the most detrimental things to your entrepreneurial efforts is getting sick. Okay. And knock wood, I've been healthy, but several years ago, like 10 years ago, I had the flu. Okay. I got the flu, and I always used to think a flu and a cold were the same thing. No, this knocked me on my ass for 6 weeks. short-circuited a bunch of presentations I had, really moved the needle back. Okay. And I was probably overdoing it, wasn't taking care of myself.
Yeah.
So that is something that I really, stress to entrepreneurs is, everyone's going to be different in that. Taking care of yourself means different things, to different people, but figure it out is what I say.
Great advice. Great advice.
All right, man. Thank you. I gotta run. I'm sure you guys have some things you have to take care of today, but we're going to continue this in the future. And maybe when you come up in October, we'll get Matt to come down this way and
100%. I was thinking the same thing when Ed mentioned it. I go, oh my God, I'll have to come out and we'll get a chance to connect in person. I'd like that.
I'm flying into Syracuse, and then my girlfriend's she's from Florida, so she's never seen like the fall foliage.
Wonderful.
We're flying into Syracuse, gonna swing down through, see Mr. Paul's, visit 42 Degrees, get some pudgies, and then head on to a function at Penn State, where my first alma mater. So would love to visit with both of you gentlemen.
Great.
hey, fantastic. We'll talk soon, and I'm so glad you guys met today. That's what it's all about. Met again.
The pleasure was all mine. Thanks for the opportunity. Look forward to participating again, gentlemen. And say hi to Stacy, Mr. Paul.
I will. Talk soon, guys. See ya.
Bye, guys.
Bye.